September 1939. Germany has invaded Poland. All Jewish people are ordered to register family members and relocate to big cities. 10,000 people arrive daily. Oskar Schindler listens to music and carefully chooses the clothes he will wear. He takes cash out of his drawers and puts on his Nazi pin. Schindler bribes his way to a good table at a fancy restaurant. The room is filled with Nazi soldiers. Schindler is charming and arranges dinner for the soldiers present. He keeps giving money to the waiters. Many of the Nazis are SS soldiers and high-ranking officials. They take pictures together. Schindler looks for a man named Itzhak Stern. He asks Stern to run his company for him, and he'll pay the workers in pots and pans that they can barter. The Jewish residents of Krakow and nearby areas are forced to move from their homes into a ghetto of 16 square blocks by March 20th, 1941. Schindler buys a factory. He tells Stern that he's using Jewish workers because they're cheap. Stern protects people by making false blue permits that list them as essential workers so they're not sent away. Schindler's wife, Emily, knocks on his door and his mistress answers. The mistress leaves. Schindler and Emily go out to dinner. Schindler believes people will remember him for his factory and that the war helped make him profitable. Emily tells Schindler she'll stay with him in Krakow if he promises to be faithful. He doesn't, and she goes back home. Schindler doesn't care about the details of the business. Stern asks Schindler to meet with Mr. Lowenstein, who comes to Schindler's office every day to try and thank him. Stern lets Lowenstein in. He's an older man with one arm. Lowenstein thanks Schindler and calls him a good man. He believes Schindler saved his life and promises to work hard for him. Schindler is angry with Stern about hiring a disabled man. Schindler's workers are walking to the factory when Nazi soldiers stop them and force them to shovel snow. The soldiers see Lowenstein has only one arm and don't believe he has a blue permit or that he works for Schindler. They carelessly shoot him in the head. Schindler is annoyed he lost a worker and that production was delayed. Krakow, the winter of 1942. SS Lieutenant Amon Goeth is introduced to the ghetto and the forced labor camp he will control. Amon is upset that his house at the camp is too small for his liking. Amon picks a beautiful Jewish woman, Helen, to be his maid. March 13th, 1943. Amon's soldiers arrive to evacuate the ghetto completely. The people in the ghetto are confused. They try to hide or show work permits, but it's useless. The Jewish people are either killed or taken to the camp. Men and women wail as they are separated. Schindler is out riding a horse and hears the shouting. He watches the evacuation from a nearby hill. He sees a little girl in a red coat and watches as she walks about. She sneaks away from soldiers and hides. The following morning, Amon watches from his balcony. He fetches his rifle and has fun shooting Jewish people in the camp. Schindler arrives at Amon's villa and complains about his workers being removed. He believes they belong to him, and Amon agrees to give him back his workers. Jewish people arrive in hordes at Schindler's factory. Amon chooses Stern to be his accountant, so Stern cannot leave the camp. Schindler attends a party at Amon's villa and meets with Stern, who gives him instructions on how to run the factory. Schindler says he couldn't get Stern out of the camp, but he'll be there on Wednesdays and will check in on him. Stern asks Schindler not to let the factory fall apart because he's worked too hard. Amon walks through the metalworks factory at his labor camp. He orders a man, Rabbi Levartov, to make him a hinge. The rabbi makes it quickly. Amon says he did well, but made too few hinges. Amon takes the rabbi outside and wants to shoot him. His gun is a problem, and one of Amon's soldiers gives him their weapon. The rabbi begs for his life, saying he made too few hinges because the machine was being recalibrated. Amon is annoyed that the second gun is not working and leaves the rabbi alive. Stern speaks with Schindler and arranges for the rabbi and others to be put in Schindler's factory. Schindler doesn't care and simply wants new workers. A woman named Regina Perlman arrives at Schindler's factory and asks him if she can work there. She's been living under false papers as a non-Jewish person in Krakow. She also asks that he hire her parents from the Plaszow camp, as older people are being killed there. Schindler says she's trying to catch him in a trap. Schindler confronts Stern about saving people in the camp by sending them to his factory. Stern says he's not losing money, so there's no problem. Schindler explains to Stern that Amon has much to do by running the camp, and is only harmful because of the war. He's convinced Amon doesn't enjoy any of it. Stern recalls a time when Amon killed 25 men to punish one. Schindler gives the names of Regina's parents to Stern before he leaves. Regina watches with relief as her parents are brought to the factory. At one of Amon's parties, Schindler goes to the cellar to speak with Helen. A young man, Lissik, is there. He works for Amon too, and leaves when he sees Schindler. Schindler gives Helen some food for her and Lissik. She tells Schindler that Amon beats her. Helen says that one day, Amon will kill her. She remembers Amon casually killed a woman in the work camp who passed by. Schindler kisses her forehead and tries to reassure her. Schindler sits with Amon after the party and compliments him. They talk about how they have true power. Schindler speaks of an emperor of old who excused someone. He calls Amon the Good, and Amon jokingly pardons him. The next day, Amon gets angry at Lissik for putting an expensive saddle on the ground. He calms down and doesn't kill him. Amon rides around camp and sees a woman being dragged by a soldier because she was smoking on the job. Amon tells her not to do it again and has the soldier let her go. He returns to his villa where Lissik is desperately cleaning the bathtub but can't remove the stains. Amon says Lissik can leave as he pardons him. Amon pardons himself in the mirror. Lissik is walking back to the camp when Amon shoots him. Amon gets drunk and goes down to the cellar. Helen stands, terrified and silent. Amon says she's a good servant and will give her a reference after the war. Amon wonders what it would be like to sleep with her. He's about to kiss her, but stops and beats her, believing she nearly talked him into being with her. It's Schindler's birthday, and he kisses many women as he celebrates. A Jewish woman and her daughter give him a cake on behalf of the workers. He kisses the girl on her cheeks and the woman on her lips. The soldiers present are confused. A woman in the camp tells other women about rumors of gas chambers disguised to look like showers. A train arrives to take people to a different camp. Amon invites Schindler to a picnic as they watch people being loaded onto the train. It's a warm day and even hotter on the train. Schindler suggests they hose down the train cars as a joke. Amon thinks it's funny and instructs soldiers to do so. He calls Schindler cruel because he's giving them hope. The people on the train desperately drink the water. Schindler orders some soldiers to give water to the people on the train when it stops. Amon watches Schindler with suspicion. Schindler is sent to jail for violating the Race and Resettlement Act by kissing the Jewish woman on his birthday. Amon has him released, claiming that Jewish women can cast a spell on a man, and Schindler doesn't think when he sees a good-looking woman. April 1944. The Jewish people killed in the Krakow ghetto massacre are to be exhumed and burned. Amon is annoyed he must arrange it. He tells Schindler they're closing and sending everyone to Auschwitz. Schindler sees the little girl in red among the dead. Schindler says he's going to his hometown to make an ammunition factory. He talks to Amon, saying he wants his people. Amon tries to reason with him and is irritated he can't work out Schindler's plan. Amon agrees to a massive bribe from Schindler. Stern and Schindler try to remember as many names as possible and include all children. As they type the list, Stern realizes that Schindler is paying for each person. They come up with 1,100 names. Schindler wants Helen as his maid and plays cards with Amon for her. He wins, and Helen's name goes on the list. The Jewish people on Schindler's list line up at the train station. The men and women are on separate trains. The men's train arrives at Schindler's hometown, and he welcomes them. He says the women will arrive shortly, but hot soup and bread are waiting for them at the factory. Due to an error, the women on Schindler's list arrive at Auschwitz. Schindler finds out and goes to fetch them. The women have their hair cut and are made to undress. They're sent into the shower and scream when it turns on. It's water, not gas. The women cry with relief. Schindler bribes the Nazi officer in charge of Auschwitz. The women on his list are put on a train and sent to his hometown. Schindler speaks with the Nazi soldiers who watch over his factory. He won't let them inside and warns them not to shoot without thinking because they'll go to prison and he'll get paid. Schindler promises to be faithful to his wife. Stern tells Schindler that all his products failed quality control. Schindler doesn't want to produce working ammunition and says they'll buy shells because it means fewer shells will be made. Schindler speaks to Rabbi Levartov and encourages him to prepare for the Sabbath. The Nazi soldiers at the factory hear the rabbi and others singing and are confused. Schindler's ammunition factory runs for 7 months and produces nothing functional. He spends millions sustaining workers and bribing officials. Everyone gathers to listen to the radio announcement that the war is over. Schindler speaks to everyone, saying they will be free tomorrow and must thank Stern, not him. Schindler was a member of the Nazi Party and made money from the slave labor of Jewish people. He will be hunted and must head west with the hope he'll be able to surrender. Schindler tells the Nazi soldiers that they've been given orders to kill the workers. He says they can kill them or choose to leave with a clear conscience. They leave. In the factory, they have 3 minutes of silence in memory of the murder of countless people. The rabbi gives Schindler a letter explaining things if he's captured. Every worker has signed it. Schindler thanks them. Stern gives them a ring they made. A Hebrew inscription on it says, "Whoever saves one life, saves the world." Schindler puts the ring on and shakes hands with Stern. He says he should have gotten more people out and asks Stern if they could have. Stern says 1,100 people are alive because of him. Schindler wasted so much money and didn't have enough to save more people. He believes he should have done more and could have saved at least one more life. He sobs and Stern hugs him. Others rush to comfort him. Schindler drives off with his wife and looks at the people he saved. The Jewish workers sleep outside. The next day, a Soviet soldier arrives and says they've been liberated. He suggests they head to a nearby town. Soviet soldiers hang Amon. Schindler and his wife divorced after the war, and he had many failed businesses. In 1958, Schindler was invited to plant a tree in the Avenue of the Righteous. In 1993, there were more than 6,000 descendants of the Jewish people Schindler saved.